Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, wanting to do a shamanic update. I don't know if you'd call them shamanic adventures, shamanic learning experiences. I had done a series, I think it was of 5 classes by a person here on YouTube, and he was posting them on YouTube. I think he was doing them with people on Zoom, and then he posted the results to share, which I really appreciated. And I'll put a link to that down below. It's Ahamkara Fox Arrow. He's a Siberian shaman. So he did a series of beginner classes, and one of them kind of focused on ancestors, and he did I don't know that it's, you end up used to certain ways of thinking already, even though I'm, very new to this. There's, in the core shamanism, that is essentially Michael Harner's concept of things that you keep and things that are common, as opposed to things that are specific to different shamanic traditions. And there's this whole notion of going down into the ground. That doesn't seem to be something that's like you go down into a hole in order to access the lower world. So that doesn't seem to be a thing with the Siberian shamanism. At least not for all journeys. And so he did, so I don't know if you would call this maybe, I don't know if you'd call it a journey or maybe an ancestor meditation, where you're to think of your ancestors with putting behind you and putting their hand on your shoulder and going back for 7 generations, so this long line behind you that is supposed to be providing you with their support and power. So it's supposed to be something that is strengthening and uplifting and all of that. Excuse me. And so I did this along with the people in the group, as I'm watching the video afterwards, and I end up feeling a lot of grief coming to me. I'm not feeling support. No, I'm not feeling support. I'm feeling a wave of grief coming forward through the generations, and I even felt discomfort in my body. And so I thought, all right, well, that didn't go the way it was supposed to. But it was an interesting clue, because anybody who's been watching my channel or interacted with me much knows that I have this, what I consider a strange thing, where I feel grief, well, let's just say I'm easily triggered into grief. A stranger will have died or something, and I can't go I'm bawling at the funeral even though I didn't know the person. I'm supposedly there to support a friend, and apparently I act like the ancestors, and I just bawl even though there's nothing. I cry even though I have no relationship to this person. So I've explored this issue of grief from the perspective of my own past lives, and I don't know if that I've improved. I haven't had a reason, thank heavens, to attend a funeral or anything, so I haven't been tested to see if I've improved in any way. But then when I got this wave of grief coming at me, so much so that in my meditative state I swooned and I kind of fell back into those people. And I thought, okay, so this is a clue for me. It's a clue that there's another avenue that I need to explore in regards to this whole grief thing that goes on. And because, well, I'll say this. There was another woman who spoke up at the time that the Zoom meeting was being held, somebody who paid for the class, undoubtedly. And she also said that she had felt some pain in her body when this, when they did that connection. And Ahamkara indicated that different, in Siberian shamanism, different organs of the body are associated with different emotions. So that was interesting, but he didn't have time to go into that. I'm sure that is much more in depth and is probably another level of study. And I didn't go any further in terms of looking anything like that up, because I'm sure it probably varies from culture to culture, etc. But I was so grateful that she spoke up, that somebody kind of gave an indication that they did not have the expected experience of the support of the ancestors. So with this meditation, it's undifferentiated. It's just kind of all of your ancestors back there, all of them. So it's not like differentiated within a certain line, like your mother's family or your father's family or your father's father's family or your mother's mother's family or your mother's father's family, etc. And I felt, because I had this issue and just being who I am, I felt, I want to pinpoint this. I want to know exactly which line of my ancestors is carrying this this grief, this sorrow. And so I started an exploration with tarot cards. And I suspected one line, which did turn out to be true, but there were two. And I'm not going to go into details because it involves too many other people who could come on and watch this video, and I don't want to upset anybody. But I asked of each of my parents' lines. So as I was just saying, my mother's mother, my mother's father's ancestors, my father's fathers, my father's mothers, all those four. I did specific tarot readings that were, what is the source? The three questions were, what is the source of the grief that persists in our ancestral line? Number two, why hasn't this grief been released? And three, how can I help this line of ancestors release this grief so it doesn't impede future generations? And I found it interesting. There's no way for me to verify this stuff, and if you're going back 7 generations, or I felt like sometimes it was even further. And again, I'm not going to dig around. I'm not going to bring up stuff from the past. This is, to me, this was, the tarot work was an insight into what I would do for a shamanic healing journey for that line of ancestors. And of course, I have no idea what I'm doing. And people usually don't recommend that you do this sort of thing without having any idea what you're doing. But I don't have the money to pay for a class. I don't know what level that would be at. And sometimes, again, I am a foolish person, and I jump off the cliff. So there was one instance in which my primary journey animal, power animal that takes me along on journeys, clearly indicated that I was not to do the journey until I had a very clear plan, number one, about what was going to occur, and number two, that I had other sources of protection. So that was really interesting. It's like during that entire journey, the ancestors of that line were not allowed to be in direct contact with me. So, not that there was zero feeling, it wasn't like there's evil back there, there's nothing like that. But there was a different level of protection. So, what I would like to do, what I'm curious to do, is to try to do this for other people. And this isn't mediumship in the sense of any kind of, I'm not tuning into any specific person. I'm not seeing, for the most part, I'm not seeing specific people. I'm not getting information about their lives or anything like that. It's more generalized. It's also not about healing a specific relationship, like between you and a grandfather that abused you or anything like that. But I would be curious to to try to do this, just even the tarot exploration, for others. One of the things that's not very satisfying about doing this is that the final journey where you're doing things, and I would say that is satisfying for me, because I feel like I'm relating to a specific line of my ancestors, what are they? I can't remember my ancestors, the people from which I came. But I don't, I didn't feel some sort of magnificent, powerful effect of doing the healing journeys that I did. And I'm going to do some more. It never felt like a one-step process. So I would like to try doing this for others to see if they feel like it's beneficial to them, if it's beneficial to them. So if anybody wants to volunteer to have me try this, and I'm going to say with one particular line of their ancestors, your mother's ancestors, that whole line, or your father's mother's, that kind of thing. I would appreciate some volunteers, and I'll put my email down in the description box, and you can just, I'll say this, I'll put my email down in my description box for as long as I'm doing this, because I assume I'll do it a couple of times, and that'll give me a feeling of whether it's really beneficial. I would also say that before you volunteer, you should try that exercise, that just get into, and I think most people watching my channel would be able to do this, get into a slightly meditative state, and just imagine your ancestors, putting a hand on each shoulder and going back, and just see, if you feel lovely, supportive energy, you don't need me to do anything. There doesn't need to be any healing. It's beautiful. It's all good. Even if you know that there are issues back there, if when you make that connection, you're feeling positive energy, then I think, you don't need me to do anything. But if you try that exercise and you feel anything that isn't supportive, strengthening sorts of energy, then let me know, and I would be interested in doing this for you. So it would be a two-part process. First of all, it would be the tarot cards, pulling tarot cards, and then the second would be a journey, which I go on the journey, and then I would just explain to you what happened on the journey, which again probably wouldn't have much or any aha moments for you. You know, it's just kind of telling you what happened. And then you'll have just that weird story in your mind about your ancestors, you know, for as long as you remember it. But it's not like, I would not expect anybody to go, aha, that's Uncle Joe, or, you know, I always heard that my great-grandmother, you know, liked apple pie, you know, because I'm not going to be giving that kind of information. What I do is I take those ancestors through a process of letting go, and then depending on what I get from the tarot cards, kind of anything else indicated by the tarot cards, you know, if they need a sense of protection or whatever the case may be. So there's that ancestor experience, which was pretty involved for me, and as I said, is a bit ongoing. The next thing was power animals. So when I did my shamanic class, when I did my basic shamanic techniques class, I'm just trying to figure out how much do I need to say. One of the journeys we went on was to bring you your primary journeying guide, which is a power animal, is your primary journeying guide. So when I did that, it was a lioness. It was actually a lion, and I don't remember if I've talked about this on my channel or not. It's a lioness with a mane. Now, I've seen this lioness with a mane in previous journeys. So I didn't know it would be her. You know, it could have been a new animal, it could have been anything, but it was definitely her and the figure that is associated with her. So it's a set, actually, although I never see the other part of the set. It's I just am dealing with the lioness, wonderful lioness. And I didn't know at the first, when I first saw a lioness with a mane, I looked it up to see if that was a real thing, and it is a real thing, actually. And it's amusing to me because it's a hormonal imbalance that often strikes middle-aged lionesses, essentially. So here I am, yeah. But one of the things so the way I was learning to do this during this class was to ask the animal, whatever animal came forward, why you now? Why are you the right power animal for me now? And she, quote unquote, communicated that it was because I needed to learn to hunt. So I didn't know what that meant. But I think in part it kind of is turning out that she wants to be the one who helps me find like other power animals. When we go into the lower world or the upper world or whatever, she wants to be finding something. She wants to be hunting. She wants to be hunting. So, while doing this ancestor work is not this healing ancestor work where I have a process that I'm actually leading them through. There's no hunting. We're traveling through the worlds, but there's no hunting involved. And I found the lioness getting bored or not liking to do this. And so I thought, okay. So that had me thinking, all right, well, she is the adjustment in ways of thinking. As I've read, the shamanism is generally underpinned by something called animism, which is a belief that everything is a spirit, has a spirit, there is a spirit of everything. There, my webcam has a spirit, so everything like has a spiritual essence. And any project you have, and it was brought up even in the Siberian shamanism class, that the concept of love is its own spirit, has its own spirit that you can communicate with. So, while I think I probably would have always said, or at least for many years, have said that I believe in an enspirited world, I would not have included inanimate objects or ideas, concepts. So, part of what I felt is that I need to open my mind a little bit to, for example, what I can help, how I can ask for help, and what I can ask for help from. So, being an animal lover, at the moment I'm sticking with animals. Although I felt like one of my tarot decks was asking me to look into some plant medicine, and so we did. I didn't have to do a journey the minute I was thinking, oh, lioness, let's go look for a plant. She was immediately like rubbing against a plant that was an agave plant. And I have no idea what to do with that. But there it was. But I decided to take her hunting for other power animals. And some of it is kind of amusing in terms of my response. And actually, I'm going to take you, I've got this strange hair kind of, do I see it? There it is. Anyway, I'm trying to keep it behind me. What will I do? I'll talk about these first. They're amusing to me. So I thought for like my YouTube channels, I have this channel, my main channel, and then I have a love channel that I had started to develop, and I'm going to be starting something called Mighty Networks. I'm going to be creating a Mighty Network, and I'll take you guys along on that. But it's, I'll explain it to you at another time. But it's another online community, so kind of creating a community. And so I thought, well, this is cool. So I could get a power animal for each of these things. And then maybe, I can refer to the people who are participating by the names, if it suggests itself that way. Well, so I do this, and so I'm just going to tell you some of the things that came up that made this not work the way I was thinking, that there would be some really cute, relatable, well, one of them is cute, but sort of animal, or some very communal sort of animal would come forth that would help me with these things. But no. So for my love channel, I got a rhinoceros. And there was a strong feeling that it was a female rhinoceros. And they're very solitary. They don't have much to do with anybody. But one thing I learned from this, looking up rhinos a little bit online, I really like rhinos. And they have been a power animal for me in the past, and not even that long ago. But is that the women, the females have the longest horns. I didn't know that. And now there is the aspect of rhinos, that horn is supposed to be an aphrodisiac, so I suppose that it suits the love channel in that regard. But I had completely forgotten about that. I was just thinking, well, for people who are looking for love or whatever, rhino is not quite, it's not a very cozy, doves, swans, anything like that. Yes, but no, rhino. So certainly, again, I love rhinos, and I will, and I see the value in that. And I think I've learned from that. It's like, well, that actually makes a lot of sense in many ways. But again, it's not a cuddly sort of thing where you could say on your channel, welcome my fellow rhinos. Let's take a look at your romantic situation for the day or the month or whatever. The next one was for the Mighty Network, the network community that I'm thinking of creating. And for that one, I got a poison dart frog. And so again, that's the one that's cute. They're very cute, brilliantly colored, but poison. But they're not poison if they're raised in domesticity. It's the things that they eat that leads to the poisonous secretions. But still, it just amused the heck out of me. So there was that one, and I'm not going to go into every one. And then for this channel, the power animal I got was a female, so a ewe, as we say here in English, for a female sheep is a ewe. So a female bighorn sheep. And this was the kind of flattest, it was, of all of the power animals that I have met, this bighorn sheep had the flattest personality. It's like she had no personality. It's just like, she's there. She walked out. She was clearly the correct animal because there's nothing else around. And again, looking into it, I can see some accuracy there. And kind of, in a lot of ways, again, there's a lot of, with the YouTube channels, there's a lot of femaleness going on there. And I don't want to exclude men, but it is primarily women who watch my channels. And that one, I think I can. I was recently that I can come up with something that is fun in the name. And I was thinking earlier, the Sisterhood of but I want an adjective, a Sisterhood of the blank Bighorn Ewes. And I'll have to get myself some little horns. They don't have big horns, they have little horns. So anybody who knows where I can get some little horns, that would just, I need some humor in my life, I think. And, but anyway, it was just like, well, you never know. I mean, you never know when you're going to look for a power animal. You never know. And so I went on another journey to find the animal that would be my my power animal for my ancestor journeys. And that one turned up quickly. Sometimes it can be, the journeys can be kind of long or confusing. You know, the one for the rhino was strange because we weren't finding it. And then the lioness, finally, she just laid down on the ground. And we're not always in Africa, but here we seem to very much be in Africa. And the pride was with us. Sometimes she brings her pride along. And the pride was with us, and she just laid down on the dirt and went belly up. And it's like, we're just going to lay here. We're not going to hunt anymore. We're going to lay here and let something come to us. And I thought, what is that? What is that? What animal comes and walks into a pride of lions? What animal would do that? And I even looked it up later, you know, kind of doubting and just thinking, is there some animal that would come into a pride of lions? I couldn't find, I mean, I didn't look extensively, but I couldn't find anything like, you know, symbiotic relationships with lions or something. But what I eventually kind of got after a while, after I was kind of told, was that I needed to lay down and close my eyes within the journey experience and wait for something to come to me. That there was no hunting this animal. This animal wouldn't be hunted. I had to lay down and let the animal come to me. And that was the rhino. And that's how I knew, was because I felt it using its lips on my body. And I thought, oh, I think that's a rhino. Because it's got the big kind of square lip. So sometimes they're not simple, but with this this black bear just was, here I am, let's go back. You know, you're supposed to go back through the tunnel, you know. Very playful, very, very happy, and totally different from the bear that is kind of what I'll call my soul bear. I'm very bear identified. This bear, this black bear, was completely different from the bear that I normally identify with, which is more of a grizzly type of a bear. But and that was fun. I think that he'll be a great companion. But then there was, so I kind of was running into situations where, you know, sometimes when you you search for a power animal, and a power animal comes, and you're like the first one that I had a shamanic treatment, and she gave me a power animal. It was dolphin. I thought, oh, that's just wonderful, you know, because I had felt for a few years, you know, an increasing interest in dolphins, and so that dolphin would turn up as the power animal was just lovely, you know. And yeah, so there are things like that, and I hadn't really had any that were like that bighorn sheep, which is, they're kind of expressionless, very, very sage, very, yeah. Again, kind of a flat aspect. But But the big one that I've had a hard time dealing with, the big one that I had a hard time dealing with, was again part of Ahamkara's ancestor lesson. So we did the thing with, sensing, hopefully, the support of the ancestors. And then we were to go, there's this idea that you have not only a personal power animal, but that your family has a power animal. And he said that it's not so much like all of your ancestors have the same power animal, but that you're asking your ancestor what your family power animal is now. So, and this is like the ancestors are supposed to provide this for us. And so, I don't have children, but in the end, I ended up thinking about my animals and stuff. And so I did this. And the power animal that came up was a wolverine. And while many people could say, oh, that's so cool, that's so, so powerful, but I don't know too many women who, undoubtedly there are, and again, I'm very bear identified, so the ferocious aspect is, and I've got a lioness with a mane, that is my primary thing. So I don't have too much problem with ferociousness, except for wolverines, because they are like the most isolating, the most ferocious. I think there's one animal that's considered more so than that. I think some people think honey badgers or could give wolverines a run for their money, but it was, and that as your family, as your family spirit animal or power animal, it's like they are actually, in the end I learned that they do, even though they live quite solitary lives, unless of course it's a female with babies that are still dependent and growing up, but that even the males will kind of greet in a friendly manner relatives, relations, children when they encounter them. But for the most part, they're solitary animals and don't like to be disturbed at all. And that describes me. And so it has been like I think what I did, because it was even shown to me as when, as I'm thinking about what is coming through, so to speak, as the power animal. It kind of started as a smaller one, and I'm thinking, and so I often check, sometimes when they come to me, sometimes it's very direct, like the bear, the black bear, but sometimes it's like it takes form, or, it's a little bit obtuse to start with. And so this started with the evolution. I was given the evolution. It was like, okay, so it's a weasel. And I'm thinking it's a weasel, and then I'm thinking, oh, no, it's not a weasel. It's maybe a stoat, and it's like every time I would think it's a this, it was at a distance, and it kept getting closer and closer and bigger. So it's like, no, so it's like a pine marten, and then it was just like, oh my God, it's a wolverine. And so there is one thing that is kind of a literal connection, and that is that I am from Michigan, and Michigan's state animal, we have state animals, is the wolverine. But when I was growing up, all the time I was growing up, there weren't any wolverines in Michigan. I don't know if it was in the 1990s or 2000s. At some point, one appeared. I learned, again, only recently, that one had been seen like with a trail cam. So apparently There's at least one. I don't know if they've populated further or not. So that one, I almost felt like was the ancestors giving me like a shadow power animal. So I looked up because it took quite a bit for me to accept that, to think, all right. And part of the reason that I did was because I looked in Ted Andrews' Animal Speak, and he doesn't have Wolverine specifically, he just has weasels. And, you know, I just have to admit, like I just said, you know, solitary, doesn't like to be any interference, no tolerance zone for anything. And I have to admit it. I have to admit it. Yes, I am that way. And not only am I that way, I have a crazy, crazy terrier. I mean, off the charts terrier. And that's her immediate reaction. She is a little savage. She is a little savage. So, you know, so maybe 20 years ago, if I had asked the ancestors what my family power animal is, maybe I wouldn't have had Wolverine. But I've got it now. I've got it now. And I don't know, as with all of the decks, back behind me and etc., it's like there's not a lot of point. I would never have gone looking for that family power animal on my own, and I don't see any point to collecting power animals. The things for specific, the power animals for specific projects is partly to get in touch with that project a little bit more through journeying with that particular power animal. Unfortunately, when I connect with power animals, it's usually not like a spoken conversation. It's all, you know, like that lion is going belly up and just laying there, and it's not until I've sat on there for, you know, for a little bit wondering what is going on, and then, you know, it's like she gets up and I get a clue. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to do that. So there's not like, you know, I know some people who they do journeys and they have like conversations, and I am not one of those. So I have to interpret. It's like a deck without a guidebook. It's my shamanic journeys. It's a deck without a guidebook. I get interactions and I get activities, things that we're doing or things that I'm shown, and I'm supposed to get it, which is dicey. But it will give my lioness a rest. I will be journeying with, and sometimes she will come along, I have no doubt. But I have other animals to journey with, so that I'm not burdening her with like ancestor healing journeys that she isn't interested in. And goodness knows lions like to rest as well as to hunt. So there's a fair chunk of my February has been these kinds of explorations and expansions on things, and yeah, it's been interesting. So, for those of you who are into these kinds of shamanic tales, again, sorry I couldn't kind of give some interesting details, but can't do that when it really involves other people. And of course, if I were to go into some of my own power animal retrieval stuff, which is less personal, it would get incredibly long and would probably have you snoozing if you're not snoozing already. Again, if you do that exercise with the ancestors behind you and you feel something that needs to be explored, go ahead and contact me, and if I'm still accepting volunteers, I would appreciate your participation, and we'll just see what happens when I do that sort of exploration and healing journey for you. Take care, everybody, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.